It's a little chilly today. It's Dewey Davenport and Mr. Good Folk, and we're barnstorming downtown Dayton. We're at the Packard Museum. You guys can see here with the sign. I have a unprofessional camera worker today, not paying a lot of money. But since we can't be flying biplane rides, we're kind of visiting Dayton, Ohio. I want you guys to join us. So when you come here to visit, I'm gonna take you on a little virtual tour here. Then you can come and visit these museums and see what Dayton has to offer. So come on in, let's have some fun. We gotta come on over here. So how you doing today?
Hey, Dewey.
This is Dan Badger from Yellow Springs, Ohio. And Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we're going to talk about the museum, and then take you guys on a little tour in the museum.
Okay. Well, let's see. A little bit about myself. In 1989, I got an exemplary score at the soccer camp at the YMCA in Xenia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did that. My dad got me a bicycle in 1993. I still have it. I'm the director at the Packard Museum.
Okay.
I have a Volvo station wagon.
Yeah, it's really beat up.
Yeah. That's really all there is to me.
All right, he does have a wife and a son, but
Yeah, that too.
I don't know, maybe they aren't his. But Dan is the director here at the Packard Museum. How long has this museum been here?
We've been here 25 years now.
Okay.
What happened was this building is an original Packard dealership. It was constructed in 1917 for Packard by Packard. And that's really kind of unique. Packard only owned a couple of dealerships and distributorships around the country. Almost all of them were independently owned. So that makes this one a little bit special. You know, it was their in-house architect, Albert Kahn, that designed the building. It was Dana's Construction here in town that constructed the place. So, yeah, it was one of their first projects. This building is 100 years old this year, and Dana's is 100 years old last year. So this was one of their first big projects.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting.
How many cars do you guys keep here then?
Well, you know, it varies from day to day. We're always changing the collection and shuffling things in and out. Between the permanent collection at the museum and what we kind of consider our in-crowd cars, you know, friends' cars and important cars that we have access to that we shuffle in and out. We've got about 200 cars altogether that you might see on exhibit. We keep about 55 cars on exhibit on any given day, but we're always changing. So, you know, if you show up this week and then show up 3 months from now, you're going to see a whole different batch of cars.
Okay. And you guys are open, what, 7 days a week?
Every day except Christmas.
Gee. I hope you're not the only employee.
No, we have a great group of volunteers. We've got about 30 folks that volunteer for us. You know, everything from doing what I'm doing today, you know, watching the front door and giving tours, to you know, retired electrician that'll come in, give us a hand, to sign painters, to all kinds of different roles, and you know, just about anyone we can find a way to use them somehow.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. I guess if you guys want to be a volunteer, maybe you come down and see Dan. Or, you know, they also take donations. It's, I think it's $6 to get in, something like that.
Yeah, we have a suggested admission. It's $6 for adults and $5 for seniors. Kids and students are always free.
I hear you. So, okay, before we go out on this quick tour here, when did Packard start building cars?
The first of the cars that are kind of considered Packards were built in 1899. Packard family was in Warren, Ohio, and owned Packard Electric, which became part of General Motors eventually. But in 1899, they built their first car, and that car was built by the corporation that they founded called the Ohio Automobile Company.
Okay.
So it was the Ohio Automobile Company, and then it was Weiss and Packard for a little while. There were a couple of different names in the early years. In 1903, they became the Packard Motor Car Company, and maintained that name through the end of '56. 1899 to 1903, they were in Warren, Ohio, in a smaller facility. 1903, they got some outside investors and a little bit more cash behind them, and they built a facility in Detroit, moved up there. That was their home through 1956. And June of 56 is what most of us consider to be the end of Packard. But if you really don't mind squinting a little bit, you could buy a car that said Packard on it through 1958.
Okay.
But those cars weren't actually built by Packard. Those were cars that were built by Studebaker. See, in 1954, Packard and Studebaker merged.
Okay.
For 55 and 56, they were relatively separate entities. You know, Packard was building Packards in Detroit. Studebaker was building Studebakers in South Bend, Indiana.
But they were still partners.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It was the Studebaker Packard Corporation.
Okay.
After June of '56, the Packard plant in Detroit shut down, and for the rest of 56, 1957, 1958, all of the cars that you could buy that said Packard on them were just rebadged and tarted up Studebakers.
What else did Packard make?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question. You see, building cars was less than half of Packard's revenue through its life. Something like 53% of Packard's revenue through its entire lifespan came from aircraft and marine engine sales.
Okay.
All of the domestic Merlin engines, you know, the Merlin engines that were built under license in this country to power the P-51s and everything else, all of those were built by Packard in Detroit. A whole lot of the Liberty engines during World War II were built by Packard. See,
Okay.
the Liberties were, you know, designed by Hall at Hall Scott and Jesse Vincent, who later was at Packard. And if you ask people around Dayton, they'll say that Kettering had something to do with him too, even though he wasn't in the room.
Okay.
But Jesse Vincent, one of the designers of the Liberty engine, gave Packard a really nice contract to build those Liberty engines, and that sort of spurred his continuing relationship with Packard. And you know, that
To build their Merlins.
well,
Okay.
he ended up as an employee of Packard after the war.
Okay.
And that actually there were some legal troubles because of that. They thought that he might have been a little bit too polite to Packard in giving them some pretty nice contracts during the war, and then in exchange, Packard might have been being a little nice to him after the war. So that relationship had some legal implications that I won't get into too much.
Yeah,
but,
that sounds good.
You know, because of that relationship, you know, they also ended up doing the Merlins during World War II, and you know, those things they were literally building as many as they possibly could get out the door, $25,000 a piece.
Okay.
So you know, they were only limited by how many they could build. You know, there were orders for as many as they could supply.
Okay.
They were also building PT boat engines during the war. They were also building all kinds of really wild things that a lot of other engine manufacturers weren't capable of doing. They were building totally non-ferrous engines for minesweepers, you know, non-magnetic engines. You know, really wild stuff because their engineering staff and their production facilities and their foundry were just at such an amazing level that they could do things that no other engine builder in the world could do.
Okay. Well, let's go and take a look at the museum, look at some cars, and get on the, you know, just go through the museum real quick. And hope you guys are enjoying this.